How do we
it was
live
tense.
through these
a lot of tension,
these times?
I'll tell you.
Tension.
Cut
and
up those highlights. Yeah.
You didn't just have to push a button?
No, there were like razor blades involved.
There were. Sal Capaccio with us now. Sal, do you remember this Bills-Lions Thanksgiving game from 31 years ago? I'm sure you do.
I do. There was a flea flicker by the Lions early in the game they scored a touchdown on.
Yes. That's incredible.
I probably cut that highlight up. I don't remember any of it, but I'm sure I was working. I know I was working.
I was not
working.
working.
What Bulldog's talking about, I remember being with when I first started being around football coaches and coaching, and some of the film, they would have to splice it like that, the same way.
Right.
Splice that film, right? Like you're trying to splice from play to play because you're rolling the whole thing, and that's how you'd have to splice the film up back in the day. Like that, I agree. I'm interested, though. So 94. So the last time they won and covered was 94, right? That's what you said?
Both the Cowboys and Lions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because 95, I'm looking at the history. 95, they both won. The Lions won by 6, and the Cowboys won by 12. So apparently there was more than a 6-point spread in that game for the Lions over the Vikings because they didn't cover. Or maybe the Cowboys were favored more by the Chiefs, but the Chiefs had a good year that year. So I find that interesting. But I also was wondering, when's the last time that the Lions won on Thanksgiving? Do you guys know?
Oh, well, Green Bay beat them. The Bills beat them.
Yep.
I don't know, last year. I don't remember what happened last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been a while, I'm going to guess, by the way you asked the question.
You know what? I apologize. I missed last year. Last year they won. Before that, it was 2016.
Wow.
Last year was that Bears thing with at the end of the game with the clock with Caleb Williams, right? Where it was like, oh my God, are you? And then Matt Eberflus mismanaged the clock. That was the game last year. But before that, the Lions had lost every Thanksgiving game before that since 2016.
I'm looking at the 95 games, and they both covered. I don't know.
Okay.
so
he's wrong.
So much for our old buddy Evan Abrams.
I don't know.
That doesn't
he has
work.
some of the best betting data there is, but am I reading this wrong? Anyway, I don't know.
Maybe that was the year, though, 95. I'll give them that because they both did win that year, and they both look like they covered.
Maybe it's happened every year for the last 31 years.
Let's just blow up the first 3 minutes of this segment.
All right.
It's fine.
All right. So, Sal, let's talk about Brandin Cooks. We didn't meet up yesterday. Elijah Moore has been released, so Cooks moves in. What could happen as soon as Sunday? Does this probably need a ramp-up, or are we going to see... Is Brandin Cooks, relevant this week, maybe?
He could play. Sean McDermott did not rule out him playing. I thought it was interesting. Sean said that's basically up to Joe Brady, how much Joe Brady feels he can help the offense and be inserted in. For anybody who wonders who makes those decisions and how they go down, I'm sure, McDermott would have to kind of approve of it after telling him that, hey, here's what I can do with him and all of that, But for Sean to say, hey, that's, up to Joe and how he believes he fits in, he did not rule out the possibility. I still find it interesting and maybe even more than interesting, fascinating of the wide receiver group, even with the Elijah Moore release, which made it at the time it happened. I'm like, man, what are they going to do here? They had 7 active wide receivers. They still have 6, and they have Gabe Davis on the practice squad, who you expect to be elevated, which gives them 7. I don't know. Maybe Curtis Samuel just doesn't play, and you can just roll with 6. That's fine if you want Brandin Cooks. So there's a lot of ways to do it now. But, what does it mean for Keon Coleman? I'd be surprised if Coleman doesn't play this week. The way that Sean talked about him today, he kind of made it known that, Thursday night was not about discipline. It was about the fact that, yes, he was disciplined on Sunday, and then they played well, and it was a short week, so they wanted the same group on Thursday. But for Sean to say that, if you go this week and he isn't on the field, he kind of puts himself in a corner, and then it's got to be much more than that, right? For saying that.
I agree with you.
I'm just trying to think about out loud how the roster looks here,
Yeah, I would think Coleman pops back in. So we'll see there. I'm just really curious what they may get from Cooks. I don't want to fault them for trying something if they consider themselves to still be in need of something that they're not getting. I wondered about Cooks right away, Sal. The first thing I thought of was how McDermott sounded about Mecole Hardman and his speed. He's very, enamored of having that factor back on, in their wide receiver core. And I don't think Cooks, a lot of what I have found, Cover One did a deep dive on all the routes he's run this year, and there's not much down the field at all. So I don't know if that's indicative of what he's capable of. But before I even knew that, yesterday my first thought was, This is McCole Hardman without the returns. He's not returned a kick since 2016 in the league. So I don't think, or a punt. So I don't think he's a return guy. He did a little of that early his first 3 seasons in New Orleans, but not at all since. So I'd be stunned if they wanted to use him that way. But maybe it's just a guy to run the route we saw Hardman run in the first game he played, even though they didn't complete the pass to him. Just someone to clear. You're going to have to cover me, and if you take one guy with me, maybe we'll throw it to you. If we take 2, then maybe we'll find someone underneath.
Yeah, and I like what Eric at Cover One did as well, and kind of how he brought to light the slants and under routes. Little in cuts, under routes, underneath the coverage a little bit. When you talk about Brandin Cooks, you think about the speed, and he has speed, but he is 32 years old, right? I mean, how much is he really running by guys all the time? And I don't think that's why you necessarily sign him, although it helps, right? I think it's more of the route running and ability to separate earlier in the down rather than later, and getting down the field. And that's what hurt the Bills on Thursday. What hurt the Bills on Thursday was that they did not have answers earlier in the down for Josh Allen to get rid of the ball, which is why when he stands back there, he gets hit because he's looking for something to happen. I mean, the time to throw stats, right? You guys have seen it. Josh has had more time to throw this year, and on Thursday night he had a lot of time to throw. But that's not because he's sitting in the pocket.
Right. He's running around. Right.
Eating his lunch, right? That's right. He's running around buying time because nothing was available to him early. This offense, and I've said this for a while, this offense, what it lacks is someone to be able to get open early when Josh hits his 3rd or 4th or 5th step and say, bam, that guy is there. And the reason why, to me, they've struggled on the road, especially in the passing game, is because on the road it's really loud. Think communication. You're just a tick behind. It's just the way it is naturally. And, you get a play in late, let's say, maybe a little bit later. You're in the huddle. You're sticking. Everybody's close together in the huddle. You get out of the huddle. If he wants to make a check, the clock is winding down. Well, when you can't make that check and you got to stick with what you have, you better hope your guy wins, because that's not the quarterback telling you that guy's going to win. I'm changing the play over here. You got to hope your guy wins. And they don't have enough of that right now. And I think that's what a little bit they're hoping that Brandin Cooks can bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, is there any kind of a postscript on Elijah Moore's time as a Bill, Sal? Like, that was a guy you could get excited about when he got here because, 60 catches, even with lousy quarterback play, like he's got a chance to play with one of the best in the business. And, I mean, it just never got airborne, really.
Yeah, I thought Elijah did a nice job once in a while to find some zones and, to make Kansas City catch comes to mind, right? I mean, like he made a couple of those plays. I think that too many teams, the teams are playing when they play man-to-man on him. I don't think it's quite the same for him. Decent route runner, but I don't know if he did enough in that regard. And look, I mean, no matter all of that, even if you say, and I will tell you though, Thad Brown, I brought this up. I don't know if I brought this up to you guys or the other show earlier this week, but I did TV with Thad Brown and Josh Reed and those guys last week on Sunday on Channel 4. And Thad said, he actually sees Elijah Moore open more than people would realize when he was breaking down some of the All-22. And you say, hey, it's a guy that's actually made a little bit more open. Maybe you can find him. And that may be the case. But apparently, from what Ian Rappaport reported, when they signed Brandin Cooks, Elijah Moore and the Bills had a discussion because Elijah didn't feel like he was being used on the field enough. And that led to a mutual parting of the ways because obviously now you add another body to the mix. So that's where that goes.
He's open a lot. Perfect. Let's get rid of him. That's what, in some, maybe this was. Just kidding. Sal Capaccio on the Wester hotline. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. Sal, are the Bills at risk of not having one or both of their starting tackles Sunday?
They are. I think it's pretty much trending that way pretty clearly for Spencer Brown. That was indicated by Sean McDermott last Friday when he met with the media, that Brown and Terrell Bernard would probably, be tough for them to go this week. So you're going to be without him most likely. I don't think there's a coincidence there that they activated the 21-day window for Tylon Grable. So will Tylon Grable be the starting right tackle? Is there enough time for that? He was the swing tackle last year. Or is it Ryan Vandermark? I mean, you could have either one. Now, McDermott was asked about Tylon Grable's availability this week. He said, we'll see. He's a young player we have confidence in, but we'll see about the turnaround and how quick it is to get him up to speed. And, up to speed meaning like conditioning and on the practice and all that and being able to get on the field. As far as Deion Dawkins is concerned, he was evaluated for a head injury during the game. He went back in. He was cleared. And then after the game, at some point, they determined he had a concussion. So maybe symptoms showed up differently. You know what I mean, guys? How
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but it
can't
totally
happen.
uncommon.
It can happen.
It can happen. That's right. So he missed today. That if he doesn't practice tomorrow, that's a pretty good indication he probably won't make it back in time. I believe you have to have 2 practices in, and one with some sort of pads on. So either way, I think you got to get 2 practices in. But we'll see. Maybe Saturday can count, but it's trending towards not having him. So what does that look like? Because honestly, one of the challenges here is I'm not sure if people are familiar with how the active game day roster works and the rules, but you're really only allowed 46, but you are allowed 48, which every team does, as long as you have 8 offensive linemen active. So the Bills, their 8 every week have been Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, David Edwards, Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandermark, and Cedric Van Pran Granger. They have a 9th. His name is Chase Lunt. He's not been active at all this year. They don't want to make him active. They just don't want to release him and have him get waived and sign with another team. Well, if you're without Spencer Brown, now you don't have 8 active. You have 7 possible. If you're without Deion Dawkins, now it's down to 6. What do you do there? In that case, you'd have to basically have both Grable active and activate Chase Lunt in order to trigger the 48-man active roster.
Well, I don't want to be dramatic, and maybe one or both will actually play, but I'm thinking of the Chargers here, who lost. The Bills' tackles are excellent, and the Chargers' tackles are excellent. They lost both guys who went to Jacksonville. They had 8 first downs. They couldn't stay on the field. They couldn't function. Yeah. So you're already seeing with their tackles healthy, Allen in a blender. All the time, and I mean that doesn't get better at Pittsburgh.
No, that's right.
Yikes!
A team with T.J. Watt and what's the other guy's name?
Highsmith,
Highbrig, right? And Highsmith too.
But he's been hurt, I think. Yeah.
Herbig. Sorry, Herbig and Highsmith.
Herbig is who you wanted.
Herbig and Highsmith, and they have 4 guys with more sacks than the Bills' most guy. Like Bosa has 4. They have 4 guys with more than 4, like on their team. They get after the quarterback. We know that. But let me say this about the offensive line and the point you just made about Josh, which is right, Mike. First of all, Ryan Vandermark has been a nice fill-in player when he's been called upon. He played against the Chiefs last year at left tackle and did a very nice job. So I think that, at least you have guys that you feel confident in enough. That being said, after the way Sean McDermott talked about Josh getting hit, like when he met with the media after the game and then on Friday, and plus knowing about what's going on with the tackles, even without that situation, I'm telling you, like, I was half expecting to see wide receivers and pass pro drills today, guys, because I think they're just going to fortify Josh Allen so much this week. Like, it's going to be like one guy I'm being exaggerating, but one guy is going out in the route and 9 guys are protecting your quarterback. I feel like that's kind of got to be the game plan a little bit here.
Wow.
I wonder how much they feel like they could win with, I know you're exaggerating to make the point.
You're right.
But with 2 or 3 guys in a pattern against this secondary, because maybe there's some business to be done there. I mean, I don't know. I would expect them to at least try to mix some of that in, considering how down they are. If they end up at Grable and Vandermark as their starting tackles against T.J. Watt and the Pittsburgh defense, I think you're going to have to find out if you can win that way. Or they're going to hand it off 50 times.
Well, that's, I think, what they do, right? I think in this game, the Pittsburgh defense has not been good against the run this year. But when they decided they wanted to be good against the run, they shut Jonathan Taylor down to less than 2 yards a carry. Like, that's what they did. Like Miami did against the Bills that day, right? It's like, we're bad against the run, but we're going to make sure you don't run. They did it against the Falcons, Miami did. We're bad against the run, but Bijan's not going to run. The Steelers' defense has not been good in a lot of different ways this year, but teams ran on them a lot early in the year. The Bengals ran for over 7 yards a carry, and then a couple weeks later, they shut Jonathan Taylor down to basically nothing. And that's because they just kind of said, we're going to make sure. So I think that would be their game plan. Make sure that you're not going to run with James Cook, but what's the Bills' game plan going to be? Hand it off to James Cook, right? And maybe we see the other running backs a little bit more involved in this game, and you don't put as much on Cook and say, we're just going to come at you in waves and use Reggie Gilliam a lot. I think Dalton Kincaid is a very, very big factor in this game. He did not practice today, by the way, but Sean did not rule him out for Sunday, meaning he said he does have a chance. We'll see where it goes. So we'll see where it goes, but the Steelers, they have given up some games to tight ends this year. If you fantasy points wise, I was actually doing this on fantasy to see how it went. The Bills actually, believe it or not, by a lot, are the number one defense in the NFL as far as defending tight ends. I'm going by fantasy points. I know that's not the best way to do it.
It's close.
But I do think it's interesting. You're right. You're right. And so, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are like 6th worst in the league at defending tight ends when it comes to that stat.
You know, that one for me, I have friends in the industry who are into that, like hard. And I just have to admit, I always think, who did you play? And it's going to be both. I mean, it's going to be coverages, but it's also going to be like, did you face Bowers? Did you face McBride? Did you face Tyler Warren? You know, these kinds of things. But there could be something there, of course. Well, there are so many. The Steelers are all tight ends. So we'll see what happens this week.
You were on with Pony. You said Andrew Filipponi. You said you were on with Andrew Filipponi.
Yes.
We had him on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, Matt Bove and I, and he made a really interesting point. He said the Steelers, they love their tight ends so much, but they don't use them. Like, they don't throw to the middle of the field. It's kind of crazy. Like, and I don't know. I don't have the metrics on that, but I guess that's part of the frustration in Pittsburgh, which is they invested in tight ends. They have tight ends, but they don't use them in the middle of the field like they should. And you guys know Aaron Rodgers' depth of target is just super low. Like, they don't throw the ball to the outside or down the field all that much at all. When they do, it's DK Metcalf. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He didn't practice today. I mean, this game, look at the Steelers injury report. This game's going to be like war of attrition game. Aaron Rodgers, we don't know if he's going to play or not. He can't take a snap under center with his wrist right now. So either he's going to be in shotgun all game or you're going to face Mason Rudolph. Derek Harmon is out for the Steelers. Apparently he helped in the run game, but now he's going to be out for them. They're missing their left tackle, Broderick Jones. This is crazy.
Seems like a great watch. Coming up on Sunday, November sweeps.
Nance and Romo, Tracy Wolfson, number one CBS crew.
Hype it up. Not too many flags, refs. Make sure you get that right. Sal, happy Thanksgiving. We will talk again, I guess, next week.
You got it, guys. Real quick, the other thing I want to point out, field conditions will be something to watch. We'll talk about it Friday. I was talking with a couple of guys in Pittsburgh. Western PA High School Championships, 4 of those games that were played on that field last week. Pitt plays at home on Saturday. Right. Steelers Bills on Sunday on that field, which they did resod, and it will be a mix of rain and snow as of right now.
Miami at Pittsburgh, right? Miami at Pitt.
It's
Saturday.
That's the thing. That's the thing there. That field. Yeah, that's right.
You guys have a great Thanksgiving.
You too, man.
We'll talk on Friday.
Sal, appreciate you. All right, Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. His appearances are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
I mean, this is us next year, except there won't be like high school games and college games.
Right.
What's us next year in the new stadium? Grass. That's what's us next year, but they'll never use it for anything, right? Just the Bills. That's it.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think there's
Section 6 is out. So, I don't know. That's 1 week a year anyway, 1 weekend a year anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Is there going to be a U2 concert?
Why is Section 6 out?
That's what was in the news the other day. Like, that was their last year.
That was the end of that? Okay.
That was the end of that. Hopefully that's not permanent. It's just what I
guess I
what I
missed
saw.
That. Sorry, I didn't know.
NFL picks coming up. You know, Sal's right. Look at the Bills' schedule. Try to think of tight ends who've done anything against them. Some of these teams don't have tight ends. Miami, twice. Pitts didn't do anything. Dalton Schultz, Kelsey. Hunter Henry, I know I had in fantasy that night. That was like 2 catches. So Sal's got one there. Picks after the break. The Sabres are in Pittsburgh as well this week. Tonight even, 6 o'clock pregame here on WGR.